Hey, welcome to Younger and Older. This is Jason and Dave hanging out at the studios at Birch Ranch in the North Woods of Wisconsin. And if you've been around this spring, which if you're listening, hopefully you're around this spring, but it's sprung early. It's crazy.
Oh my goodness. Trees are almost budding.
It's weird.
And the recording of this is in February.
Right. And it's going to be 52 degrees today.
Yeah.
Which if you live in the North Woods of Wisconsin, you know is not a normal thing.
I took some bikes out yesterday.
You did?
I did.
You bike?
I do.
Oh, I've only seen you walk.
Yeah. Well, I'm into the
fancy no work bike?
Oh, yeah.
Where it does it for you.
Well, sort of.
The electric
it can
bike?
do it for you, or it can do it.
Well, it does as much as you want if you hit the button.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so we'll see. But it was fun to be out on it. I mean, out on a bike, on a road.
Yeah, I went for a walk yesterday. It was great.
Well, we did the walk, too. So it's like
double duty.
It's too nice.
Oh, I know. You got to get outside. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Now, the one thing is we do love winter, too. And at camp, we love winter. So we're kind of missing that. But at this point, it's been warm enough where we're like, okay, it's gone.
It's odd because inside we're all enjoying it. But then through the camp lens, it's like, wait a second. We still have like 3 weekends of winter retreats that we're trying to hang on to as much as we can.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is that we're unique in that a lot of our winter retreats we're still able to do some of. Yeah. We can't cross-country ski now, but we did for most of the weekends.
Yeah.
I mean, they could. But right now
it wasn't ideal.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal, but they could. But we've been able to still use the tubing hill.
Yep.
And we've been able to use the ice on the lake, and we've been able to use. I mean, so we've still had the winter experience. We just, for some reason this year, it's been a weird.
Well, and one thing we've talked about on the show, Dave. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you can do, as long as you get people together and take away like the distractions of being on the phone.
Absolutely.
All of a sudden you bring relationships, and because we're designed to be in relationships, people have fun regardless of what they can and can't do.
Yep.
And that's what's been happening, which is great.
Yeah. So I want to invite all of those that are listening to come up and join us in some kind of relational weekend or week.
Yeah.
Come up here and spend some time. Any mom or dad that listens to this, I want to encourage you to encourage your child to come to camp this summer. Come and bring friends, and if they are already, you come and be their counselor for the week. You can do that. You can go online, and you can fill out the paperwork and get all the fun background checks done and all that kind of thing. And you can be here and be influential in your kids' life and in the
100%.
lives of their friends. So I encourage you to do that and think about it. Not just send them, but be a part of it, because everything here is relational.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love it. The different activities, like horses, zip line, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever adult does these with the children that come up, they develop a special bond because they're doing stuff that's just fun together, and they have those memories for the rest of their lives. So,
absolutely.
Mom, Dad, Aunt, Uncle, think about it. Come on up, be a part of the summer. You counsel for a week.
Yeah.
I mean, Jason is in charge of all the program, and when his sons are campers, he has been a counselor for the last 2 years?
Last 2 years, yeah. It's been fun.
And has that been valuable to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's been really great. It just allows me to hang out, not only hang out with my son, but then a bunch of his friends. And then he gets to see me in a different light because I'm out there having fun with him rather than just the guy being in charge, all the time.
Right.
I'm out there being silly. I'm out there getting dirty. I'm out there going through theme night with them. And it just creates a different relationship, but then it opens up conversations as well, which is amazing.
Yeah. Just think
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. Think about you sitting and talking around a campfire to a bunch of his friends about God.
Right. It's great.
And him sitting there listening to you, knowing that this is my family, this is my dad, this is what's important to him, and my friends are hearing it.
Yeah.
Now, that's irreplaceable.
Absolutely.
I would encourage any mom, dad, aunt, uncle, you've got kids coming to camp this summer, why don't you look into coming and being part of that too? If you can, that's something I would encourage you to
100%. Do. Yeah, and it's something that I think you wouldn't regret. It's worth anything.
Yeah.
Especially if your son or daughter's open to having you do it.
Right.
Why not? I think there's this thing back in the day where it's like, oh, I sent him to camp. You just got to leave him and let him go. Like, I get that, but go with them.
Right.
As long as they're willing to have you be that person to still willing to speak into their life, take advantage of that, because they'll get older and that'll change.
Yep.
And so I've already told my wife, I'm like, as long as my boys are still wanting me to be their counselor, I'll be their counselor for as long as.
There you go.
because probably by high school they'll be like, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
But let me go with somebody else.
Thanks, Dad. I want Dave now.
Which I understand. And that's why it's also important to have positive people to reinforce the thing as a parent, the biblical truths that we're teaching.
Right.
And that's why we look for counselors that can come alongside students as well. But I mean, you could do that as a parent.
Right.
So maybe he's sick of me, but then, Joey's dad.
Right.
Is somebody who's like, oh, I want to be with Joey's dad. And it's like, well, I know Joey's dad. That's great. Come and,
Right.
And that's why we look for solid people to come and counsel our students, because it's those relational, it's all part of that community. And then that way, if it's somebody that they know, it's even better, because then it takes it beyond camp.
Right.
Because one of the things that we've tried to do is we don't want camp just to be a once-off. We want it to build relationships, so that way when you go back to wherever it is you go, you can build off of it.
Right.
And so if you come up with students or with friends of your son or daughter, all of a sudden it's like they have a relationship with you now, even when you go home. It's not just like, oh, at camp you're amazing. It's like, yeah, at camp you're amazing, but that means you're that same person even when I'm at home.
Right.
And I can still talk to you.
Right.
Because you have that relationship now that you didn't necessarily establish back at home.
Right.
And that's I think the part of counseling that sometimes is hard to portray to parents, or to people that invest in the lives of students. And even if you're a small group leader, maybe it's not even just your son or daughter, but maybe you're a small group leader, get your small group to come up. The amount of relational fortitude
Right.
that happens in a week of camp would take 6 months back at home in a week-to-week small group setting.
Right.
And so come and do it. It's amazing.
When I ran I was in charge of the junior high boys in Berwyn at my dad's church when I was younger in there. One of the things we required was that our leaders would take kids from the club to camp.
Yeah.
So as a young leader, as even a high school, college leader, I would come to camp in the summer, and I would always have a goal of 5 kids from club would find each one friend, and I would go to those houses personally and invite those people to come to camp.
Yeah.
And so they would be 5 friends that have never been to club,
Mm-hmm.
and 5 that are part of our club work. And then every year I would go to camp with them and be their counselor.
Yeah.
I never saw a year where those 5 did not come to Christ.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that's an automatic button or whatever it might be. It's just I've never seen it for me.
Yeah.
And so that actually is what propelled me into camping full time.
Yeah.
Because it was like I've never seen the results that were so positive in somebody's life. And then when I got to go back to Emmanuel, which was our church, then I got to go get these kids into our club. So automatically our club grew by 5 because I was their friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into the homes. You get to go visit and say, by the way, I was his counselor at camp, and go on and talk about it. And, oh, we have a church. You're welcome to come. So now we get into the home because the parents want to know who this person is that their kid likes.
Yeah.
That met at camp and that kind of thing, and he works in the local church. I think sometimes the people in the local church have lost the vision of going out and setting strategies to just go be relational. Mm-hmm. And Silver Birch Ranch has always been about that. And if you're listening today to this and you're sending a child to camp and they're coming from a youth work, I would go to your church and say, are we supplying a counselor for that?
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing that? Because the relationships that are built, the situations that are put forth at camp, the decisions that are made, if they can go home to somebody who already knows all those and what's going on, then you are so far ahead, as you were talking about. So two challenges, I think. If you're a parent or you're a youth worker, come up with people and be their counselor.
Right.
You say, well, it's a week of my vacation. It's well worth a week of your vacation.
100%.
Yeah, you take a week of vacation and do it. What else is more valuable in life than presenting the gospel to children in a way that we can affect the future in their life? So I encourage you to do it. Go look at silverbirchranch.org. You can find out all the paperwork there. Give us a call at the office and ask for Jason, and he'll explain how to do this for you, because this is an important part of what we do, and it's still a unique part of what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is serving, volunteering. We're always looking for volunteers, and that's something that I grew up doing.
Right.
As soon as I was old enough, I'd come and help out during the summertime, and I did it with groups of people. And it's something even as a parent you could do. Even as a small group leader, maybe, you can't commit to a full week of camping, whatever. Well, then come up and volunteer week to week, or give us a call and we'll customize the amount of time during the summer, or even during the year, where you can come and help with dish crew, come help us run the canteen. We have all the different areas of camp that you can actually volunteer in. And here's the thing that I think is most important as I highlight volunteering is, as you look around at culture, we're losing this whole concept of serving others and dying to ourselves.
Right.
And so what other better way to show your small group, to do it with your family, to do it with, whatever ministry involved in, the sky is the limit, but come and serve other people. It doesn't cost anything.
Right.
It doesn't cost anything, but you get the value of being able to serve other people, to see the bigger picture, and it just grows not only your relationship with God, but even each other, because you see the benefit that it has. That's the way that God is designed. He says, love God, love others. We talked about that all the time on this program. And that's why it means so much. And we're losing that. Yep. I mean, if you look at the local church, they're struggling getting the people to volunteer and to help out. And likewise, we even see it here in the camping ministry. Whether it's finding summer staff that'll stay the whole summer, or even volunteers to come up for a week at a time. It's not like what I call the olden days,
right,
where we we have to actively remind people, hey, why don't you do this? So I challenge you, if you don't have any plans this summer, maybe take a couple of days. I mean, we say a week at camp, but it's not even a full week anymore.
Right.
It'd be a 5-day commitment during the summertime. Or if summer doesn't work, we have camps every weekend throughout the year. Then you can come and help with dish crew and do the same thing. And so give us a call. We'd love for you to come up, partner with us, and teach this next generation, or even just remind yourself the importance of dying to yourself and putting other people first. And you'll be able to see, and God will show you so many cool things. I mean, like you said, Dave, from a counseling perspective, you saw lives change.
Right.
But the cool thing is, and I think people don't understand this, that even if you do dishes or help out with horses, you still get to see lives change and be a part of that.
And be an example.
Every role here is important at camp.
Right.
And that's what I even tell our volunteers and summer staff. It doesn't matter whether you're in the cabin or behind the scenes. It all plays a part of the relationships that happen here at camp and the way that God uses it to remind people of who He is.
Yeah. And that's the greatest goal we have, is to get young people up here and get them in relationships with those who are older that love God.
Yeah.
Be an example in front of them. You might say, well, I don't have anyone that I know coming to camp. Well, you can recruit people, send them to the website, or if you have a skill. I mean, we're always looking for an extra nurse per week that helps us. Let's say you're a lifeguard certified or something. You can come and work for a week as a lifeguard. Or we have guys come up and help with the horses. We have electricians come up and do electrician stuff. I mean,
if you know how to drive a boat and have
a
boating license,
a boat, or even drive a minivan, for a week. That's all valuable. So you can look on the website. There's a lot of different things that can be done, but there's a reason why Christian camping has been so effective through the years.
Right.
And it's because it's relational. And those relationships actually go back to the home church with the individual.
Yeah.
I do not want to change the bottom line principles to what makes things successful.
Yeah.
And what will change camping is when those from the local church quit being involved.
Right. Right.
Then all of a sudden you send your kids away. It's like sending kids to school and trusting the system to educate them.
Right.
You as a parent are still responsible for their education.
Yeah.
Regardless if you send them to school or not, or you do it at home, you're still responsible.
Right.
Likewise, the church is responsible to raise these young people up in the ways of the Lord and understand what the scriptures are. So, and the parents are responsible for what the kids learn at church, and bring them to camp. Let them see how serious this is, and you're willing to rearrange your life for it.
Absolutely. And I want you to know that it's an impact that lasts a lifetime. When I think back to even the times that I volunteered and all that, it changed the way that I looked at life. Yep. And not only that, the people I did it with, I look at where they're at today, and all if not most of them would look at their life and say, that was a pivotal moment in my life that changed my relationship with God.
Absolutely.
And a good chunk of them are still involved in camp in one way or another by sending their own kids, or they still come up every now and then to volunteer, and they're trying to get their kids to come up and volunteer. Why? Because they saw it as pivotal in their relationship with God. Why? It helped them to see the importance of serving God, serving others, dying to themselves, and realizing, man, there's more to life than just watching a screen and feeding my own desires.
Yeah.
And so if you're at all debating it, I encourage you, just come up and try it. I've never met anybody that's come up here and spent a weekend and said, wow, that was a waste of time.
Right.
In fact, it's the opposite. It's like, wow, I never realized all that God did in this place.
Right.
And it's not us. God, when
Right.
you focus on the main things, when you focus on the things that God has designed us to focus on, there's a reason he designed it that way.
Yep.
And that's all we're doing. We're just trying to refocus people on the way that God has designed it, to love God and love others and to do it in relationships.
Yeah. And you never know when that's going to land in a place that real fertile soil. For example, somebody told me yesterday that Arthur Greeno, which some of you may know or not know, he owns a couple Chick-fil-A's, and he's used by their franchise to do a lot of leadership training, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Most people aren't going to know him, but he wrote a book, and in the book, there is a segment that talks about his time here at Silver Birch Ranch while he was a worker and how influential it was in his life. So we must have had online somewhere saying, summer staff is available or whatever it is, and he just posted to it.
Really?
Yeah, and just said, it changed my life. That was one of the most important things that I ever did.
Wow.
And here he is now being extreme, and he'll point back to his time here when he was here all summer.
Yeah.
And he points back to that as a pivotal moment in his life to change him forever.
Yeah.
And now he travels the world on behalf of Chick-fil-A and others who want him to teach leadership and all that kind of thing. And he talks about it being pivotal while he was here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because that was kind of random.
Yeah. That's
cool. And all of a sudden someone would say, hey, do you know this guy? And I think, well, I do know him. It's not like we're best buddies or anything, but I know who he is, and we are friends.
Yeah.
Because he came back and he kind of told us the story. Because all of a sudden I got his book in the mail, and I just read the back cover, and Silver Birch Ranch was mentioned. And I go, huh?
Yeah.
And I had to read the whole thing to get the context.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So, that's what we're about, getting people that understand who God is, learning what it is to walk with God, the reality of things. There are so many things going on in the world right now. I read this morning so many things in the news that just bothered me.
Yeah.
From states making laws that just don't make any sense at all. And you look at it and go, what can we do?
Yeah.
Well, we can give young people the truth. That's what we can do. We can talk to young people and say, God did create you. He does love you. There is a plan. Let's act in accordance with that.
Yeah.
We could do that.
Absolutely.
And we're free to do that. And as long as we're free to do it, we need to.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was reading, I think in this session, maybe the next, I just want to read some scripture and talk about it a little bit, because I think when someone comes to camp, I, as the president of the ministry, I'll look at it and go, there's 4 things I want to see happen. Okay. When somebody comes. I want us to be effective at communicating the Bible, effective at knowing Christ and making him known. Because if we're not doing that, we're wasting our time. That's not what we're about.
Yeah.
We are not a YMCA camp. We're not a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout camp. And again, I'm not against YMCA camps or Boy Scout and Girl Scout camps, but we're not that.
Right. We have a different focus.
Our focus is to know Christ, to make him known.
Yep.
So we need to be effective at that, and we need to know the Bible. The other focuses, the second one is that we're a safe place. We need to be a place where when people come, we stay safe. That's hard.
Yeah.
Because we live in a culture that's not safe, and everybody that comes on our grounds comes from that culture. Mm-hmm. So that's something that everyone can pray about, and that's something we try and strive towards, is let's keep people safe here every way, emotionally, sexually, the whole works. Let's work at keeping people safe. The third thing is we want to be a fun place, because that's the basis of a lot of relationships. We love it when we hear kids laughing and put them on horses and put them on zip lines and have them jump in the water and get seaweed on their feet because they've never been in a real lake, that kind of thing.
Don't let that scare you.
Yeah. So that's kind of the fun stuff. So we want to be a fun place. And the last thing is we want to be affordable. Mm-hmm. And that's really important to us. We want everyone to come regardless. So the first part is really about understanding our mission and being effective at it. So obviously, we spend a lot of time reading God's Word and studying and trying to help young people. We have the Nicolet Bible Institute. We have the Northwoods Retreat that's dedicated to discipleship. We've got this camp, our main campus. We're working with foster care kids around the country, trying to get them into the Bible, into local churches. So everything we do is trying to get them into the Scriptures and know what God's Word actually says. So I want to read some Scripture and just talk about it with Jason during the rest of this time.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes 9, 10, and 11. This is a verse I like to read often because it helps me focus on what I need to focus. Mm-hmm. And some people have asked me through the years, young people, you've been here, this will be my 58th summer, so I've been here quite a few summers. And in the process of being here, you do focus on something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So these are some verses I focus on. It says, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. For in the grave where you're going, there's neither working or planning nor knowledge or wisdom. I have seen something else under the sun. The race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned, but time and chance happen to them all. I love that verse. Now, what's interesting there is the reason I like reading that a lot is because in our culture today, so many young people are growing up and they're thinking, the prize is going to go to the swift, the strong, the wise, the brilliant, and the learned. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. There are many people who are swift and strong. They spend their whole life doing that, and they're not successful in life because only God will determine that at the end of life. But here's what it says, time and chance. Now, if you read the Bible through, you realize it's not talking about chance like luck.
Yeah.
You're talking about God is in charge of that part.
Yeah.
So if you were to ask me, okay, Dave, how do I get to where you are today? You've been in this camp this many years. How do you do that? I'd say, well, be born into the family of Richard and Joyce Wager and be the son who ended up here.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it happened, pretty much. That's how it happened. See, there's time and chance there. I was at the right age. I was in the right family. That allowed me to be in the right position to do what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Now, for me to tell you that, boy, I worked harder than everybody else and I'm smarter and I'm swifter, and that would be a lie.
Yeah.
The time and chance thing worked. The other stuff didn't. Mm-hmm. And as I look at life, I want to encourage young people. There's nothing wrong with being swift, strong, wise, brilliant, or learned, but that's not what makes you successful. Mm-hmm. What makes you successful is you deciding that over time, if you're 10 years old today, the next 10 years are going to be critical for you.
Yeah.
Where you put your head, who you listen to, knowing what the Bible says, hanging around with older people that know God. These are all important things to be able to do. If you're 15 years old, the next 10 years, same thing. You need to decide, I'm going to be around those who love God. I'm going to find people who love God. I'm going to walk with them. I'm going to serve with them, kind of what we were talking about earlier. Because the battle, you're going to find out, the race doesn't always go to the swift or the battle to the strong or food come to the wise or to brilliant or to learned. But this time and chance thing that God is in charge of, that's where success comes from. And so I want to spend time with God. And then the first part of that verse, on the 10th verse said, so whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. Mm-hmm. Why? Because you're learning today. You're understanding more about life. The fun part of being young is that you don't have experience yet and you're out there learning.
Yeah.
And learning can be a fun thing. Mm-hmm. And so you got to set your mind to it and say, I want to learn.
Yeah.
You may not be the swiftest, the strongest, the wisest, the most brilliant, the most learned, but you can know God. I don't care who you are and who's listening out there. If you want to know God, you can know him. You just got to open the Bible, spend some time in it. In fact, come up to camp. I still look for young people that are going into the work world, and they'll come to me and ask for advice.
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, number one, don't work for money.
Right, 100%.
And they go, well, what else do you work for? You work because that's where God calls you to work. Mm-hmm. And you'll get paid something, and use it wisely. And we might get to a verse like that talks about that as we continue to do this. But the bottom line really is, in life, what you got to understand is that God created you in your mother's womb to be a very special person.
Yeah.
Find out what he created you to do and head in that direction. And you'll get paid something, because if you don't work, you don't eat.
Right.
So that's fine. But the bottom line really is you're going to be somebody who is fulfilled in life, who understands the very purpose that God put you on this life, in this life for. And while everyone else around you is struggling with their anxiety and they're trying to figure it out, you have already figured it out, because you can come to God and say, God, I may not be the swiftest, I may not be the strongest or wisest or most brilliant, but I know who you are, and I'll walk with you and I'll love you, and I'm going to listen to you, and that will make you successful.
Yeah.
So I encourage our friends, read the Bible, listen to it, and read the verses, put them in a place where you can read them often. It's interesting in the Old Testament, the people were encouraged. A lot of the Jewish families would recite verses every morning together as they sat together, and they were encouraged to put tassels on things to remind them of the truths of the Bible. So they would have tassels on their hats or whatever, wherever they put them, on their robes, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I thought, we need to be people who do that. we need to be reminded of truth because we're so reminded all the time of things that don't actually work.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's an important thing in life to be able to do, is get to the point where you read God's word and you apply it.
Yeah.
As I read the word there, I wasn't using any original language or anything. I was just reading it saying, okay, here's what it's saying. Anyone that's listening to us can open a Bible and read those verses. And then what I encourage you to do is not just read them, but sit there and think about them. Because if you go back on that and you just think about that verse, the successful people aren't necessarily these people.
Right.
Well, how do you fit in that? What are you doing in life? Are you just trying to be swift and strong? Is that what your goal is? Now, I'm not against being swift or strong.
Right.
But is that really what's going to make you successful? No. Time. Let yourself be on a longer scale of learning. In other words, it'll take time. Put yourself in a position. If you're 15 years old, you should be in a place where you're in a Bible study, a church, a youth work. You should be saying, okay, in the next 10 years, I want to really learn who God is because I'll be in a job world, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Come to Nicolet Bible Institute. If you're a college student, come here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let us work with you and develop you into the point where you realize, I know God, I know what it is to serve. I've been a part of this MBI team for a year. If you're getting out of high school or you're in college or you've been in the workforce for a couple of years and you've never really taken some formal training, we encourage you, take some. Come to MBI. Go to NicoletBibleInstitute.org. Just go to silverbirchranch.org and hit the tab and go on over there. And let us work with you for a year and teach you what the Scriptures say and see if we can apply it together and become an army of people who love God and love one another and know how to present the truth correctly.
Yeah. And I think it's so important because it just takes a little bit of effort. I think we get so wrapped up sometimes in these sort of things, whether it's pursuing money, pursuing strength, pursuing all that sort of stuff, but that's not the end goal.
No.
God has given us a reason and a purpose behind all of these things. God's called you to do something with the gifts and talents. I'm not saying He's called you into ministry, but everything can be a ministry. He's called us all to go and to show people who Jesus is. For some, that's being a plumber. For some, that's being at a camp. For some, it's being a teacher. Whatever it is, whatever giftingness that God has, lean into that. Lean into the calling. Don't just do it for the money. Don't just do it to gain whatever status you're looking for, because you'll realize that you'll never obtain it. That's the way that God's created us. And I think that's just a great reminder. And that's why we love being up here at camp, because it allows us to kind of take those things that kind of impact us in the ways that we think, put that aside, and refocus on the relationships, the way that God is intended to be, to love Him and love others. So I encourage you today, as you're thinking, spend some time with God and say, all right, God, what can I do to better focus on you? Something practical. Unfortunately, we're out of time in our discussion today. Hopefully you've been encouraged. Hopefully you've been challenged. But for now, this is Jason and Dave, and Younger Older. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.